We're now joined by Ben Jamal, who's the director of the Palestine Solidarity Campaign, Europe's largest and most influential pro-Palestinian organisation, and one of the key organisers of the massive London marches for Palestine. Ben is also a British Palestinian citizen. Ben, welcome. Could you just start by reminding us what the PSC's, the Palestine Solidarity Campaign's priorities are? Thinking back to before the 7th of October.
Yeah, well, listen, obviously our priorities at the moment are very much focused on amplifying and ramping up the demand for a permanent ceasefire, rooted currently in the reality that the temporary truce is effectively delivering a message to the Palestinian people that you have a stay of execution, and is entirely insufficient also to deliver the humanitarian aid that is desperately required as winter approaches and 1.7 million Palestinians displaced and sheltering in the rain wherever they can find shelter. So we are focused on that ceasefire, but in all of the actions that we have been taken, we have returned to the narrative that drives our work, which is the reality that what we're dealing with in Palestine is not, as it is often framed, a situation of conflict or competing nationalisms. It is effectively a situation of injustice and oppression, and that the root causes of the current violence we're seeing are Israel's enduring military occupation and imposition upon all of the Palestinian people of a system of apartheid, and that until that is ended, then violence will not end. We echo the words of Paulo Freire, the Brazilian teacher and philosopher, who said that when a relationship of oppression is established, then violence is already present. So that's our ongoing work. And what we do, we're a solidarity organization. We take our lead from the Palestinian people. We work with a whole host of Palestinian civil society organizations. When we say to them, what is it you require? What does effective solidarity mean? The answer is always very clear and always the same. They say, what we need you to do is in your arena, in the UK, end your complicity, end the complicity of your government, of your public bodies, and your companies and corporations. And that takes us to the fundamental demands that are rooted in the call for boycott, divestment, and sanctions that are the mechanisms to hold Israel accountable. So that's our ongoing work. But in this moment, we focus on a ceasefire, but we keep drawing attention to the need to build sustained campaigns to address those root causes.
Now, we'll come back to some of the points you raised there, but I just want to ask you this. I mean, it's often claimed, the claim is that Israel is the only democracy in the Middle East. Yet I was listening to a very interesting Gideon Levy, who used to be an advisor to the Israeli government, is now very, very critical, he's an anti-Zionist. He said that the reality is you've got different setups in what is called the State of Israel. You have essentially what is a parliamentary democracy for Israeli citizens in Israel. You have the Israeli Arabs who have the right to vote but are discriminated against. You have the situation in the West Bank where, I think third-class citizenship, they don't have no citizenship. They are living fully under occupation. And then you have this situation in Gaza where they're under constant siege and are regularly bombarded. This is just the latest example of it. It's not exactly a model of democracy.
No, it's not. And look, this has been the reality that has existed for decades. In reality, ever since the establishment of the State of Israel in 1948, established on the basis of a systematic process of ethnic cleansing that saw the bulk of the Palestinian population, over 750,000 Palestinians, including all of my extended family, driven into exile. Ever since that time, Israel has not functioned as a democracy, even before its occupation in 1967 of Gaza, East Jerusalem, and the West Bank. So we have a reality now that is now starting to be internationally accepted. Palestinians have been articulating for many, many years that they're subject to a system of apartheid. That reality has now been accepted by a whole range of human rights monitoring organizations, including Israel's own leading human rights organization, B'Tselem, including Amnesty International and including Human Rights Watch. B'Tselem, in the report they produced in 2022, put it very clearly. They said, look, in all of the terrain, from the river to the sea, across what is now the state of Israel, across the occupied Palestinian territory of Gaza, East Jerusalem, and the West Bank, there is one regime in control that operates through a simple principle to privilege the rights of one people, Jewish Israelis, above another Palestinians. But that system of apartheid operates differently depending on where you live as a Palestinian. If you live in the West Bank, then it is operated through a system of military occupation that denies fundamental rights, that treats you to a separate body of laws than illegal Jewish settlers are treated to, that controls your freedom of assembly, your freedom of movement. Palestinians who live in East Jerusalem, which Israel sought to annex, that's illegal, but under Israeli law, it's annexed territory. But Palestinians who live there have residency rights, but not citizenship rights, which means Israel controls every aspect of their lives, but they can't vote. And their residency status is extremely fragile. They can be removed as residents, expelled from the terrain on the flimsiest grounds. 20% of the population of Israel are Palestinians. So those are the descendants of Palestinians who were not expelled in 1948. They are citizens of the state. They can vote. They can even hold parties to stand for election, but they do not have full rights under the law. They are not treated with equality. And there's a whole body of laws. An Israeli civil rights organization, Adalah, has identified over 50 laws that actively discriminate against them. One is a stark example of this. There's a law that allows some Israeli towns of a certain size. I think the limit is, if you are a town under 1,000 residents, to establish what are called residence committees. And those residence committees, under the law, can exclude Palestinians from residing in those towns so that they can remain Jewish only, on the basis that the Palestinian citizens moving there would disrupt the social and cultural harmony of the town. So you have a straightforward process there of discrimination, of segregation and denial of rights to one body of citizens. Imagine a situation in the UK where we allowed black and minority ethnic citizens to vote, even to stand for election, but said there were certain laws they couldn't change, including a law that says certain towns in the UK could remain white only. I don't think many people, if we had laws like that, would say that the UK was functioning as any sort of democracy. And then finally, of course, apartheid also applies to Palestinians who are not under direct control of Israel in terms of their lives. The bulk of the Palestinian population that live in exile are refugees in exile, denied the opportunity to return to their lands. They are also victims of apartheid under the legal definition of apartheid, because they are denied the possibility, even though, as in my case, I can stretch my lineage back in Palestine many generations, denied the opportunity to settle there by a body of laws that denies Palestinians the right to return, but says that any Jewish person in the world is a putative citizen of the state. So that's also a law that discriminates and denies rights to Palestinians. So across the piece, this is not a democratic system. This is a system of apartheid, and we're not going to see an end. If you want to talk about a conflict, this is a conflict because Palestinians are resisting the imposition of apartheid. And the violence is not going to end until you dismantle the system of apartheid in the same way it was dismantled for white South Africa.